Hello, everybody. So happy that you could join us today. We're going to wait just another minute while there's still some people joining. So just hang tight. We will start here in just a minute. Okay, it is 11 o'clock, so I am going to go ahead and get started. Before I pass things off to Brittany, I want to go over just a couple of webinar logistic housekeeping kinds of things. So you're on mute right now, and you want to send questions to us via the question feature. So Brittany, can you put on the panel?
Can I put on the panel?
Can you go to the next slide so they can see it?
Sorry.
It's okay. So you're going to send questions here via your question feature. You can raise your hand. We do keep everybody on mute just because at this point, we have just under 500 people on, so we want to make sure that we don't have any audio issues, but we encourage you to send questions. We have a couple of people monitoring the questions, and we will get them answered. Brittany will answer questions at the end, a little bit more as a group, but we'll also answer some along the way. And I'm going to pass things off to her in just a moment. But before we do that, so a couple things. If you are still on at the end, we are giving away 2 daily Math Fluency Intervention kits, topic of your choice. So definitely stay on so that you can be part of that giveaway and see who the lucky folks are. But I'm also going to give you guys a poll quick before I pass things off to Brittany. And you may not be using daily Math Fluency or Math Talks or number strings yet. And if you're not, that's okay. But I envision that a lot of you do to a certain degree. So what we want to see is how you currently use them. So if you can answer this and give us a feel for how you use Math Talks and number strings. And I'll give you guys just a couple minutes here. Good, good. Okay, and let me share this. So we have a combination. Most of you all use this as a combination. So maybe whole groups and small group, intervention, one-on-one. This is great. There's a lot of different ways to use Math Talks and number strings, and Brittany's going to walk you all through, a little bit more about the intervention piece and give you some background on Math Talks, number strings, and daily Math Fluency. So I am going to go ahead and pass things off to her. Brittany, you should be able to, there we go, we're back on your screen. So go ahead and take it away.
Okay. So first off, I want to tell y'all thank you so much for joining me today. I'm not sure I was trying to show you my face so you could see who was talking to you today, but it doesn't seem like it wants to open up. So first off, I just want to welcome everyone here today. I want to, again, thank y'all so much for taking your time out of your day. I know that we are in a crazy time right now, but I'm hoping that I can bring you some information that can be helpful for you, if it's helpful for you right now or helpful to you in the future. But very excited to get started with you. Just to let you know who I am. I was a classroom teacher for 17 years. In those 17 years, I taught anything from grades 1 to grade 4. And then my very last year, I decided to become a 7th grade math teacher. If you've heard me speak before, you've heard me say that. So I wanted change and challenge in my life, and I definitely got both for sure. So, but part of that experience actually comes out in our presentation today, especially when we're talking about creating that mathematical mindset and on fluency. So I want to go ahead and get started with you today so that you know what we're going to cover during this session. The first thing we're going to talk about is a mathematical mindset. So what is a mathematical mindset? Then we're going to look at the importance of math fluency. And we're going to move on. How does math fluency have a role in intervention? What does that look like? And then we're going to experience some math. So if you know me as a presenter, if you've ever seen me, we will always do some type of math. We will experience the math. So we're going to experience 2 targeted instructional routines that are going to be number strings and math talks. And lastly, we're going to look at what Hand to Mind has to offer you in the realm of math fluency intervention. So let's get started. When we think of a mathematical mindset, Jo Boaler has really defined this for us, and she says that a mathematical mindset is knowing that math is a subject of growth and the student's role is to learn and think about new ideas. What we need to recognize is, or what at least I recognized, is I don't know that I had a mathematical mindset growing up. One reason might have been because I never saw math as a subject of growth. I saw math as something that somebody was supposed to tell me how to do it, and I was supposed to mimic it. I didn't see that it was something that I could take what I knew and I could build upon that. I knew my student's role was to learn, but really to think about new ideas, I was just waiting for my teacher to tell me. So I think that Jo Boaler has done such a nice job on this in the research out there to really help us understand what we're trying to help our students achieve. John Vanderwall has also talked about this. So if we want to get our kids to have that mathematical mindset, then he said this a long time ago, that we have to make a major shift in our teaching that focuses, that focuses on getting answers to one that focuses on the thought process. If we want to create kids to think that mathematics is a subject of growth, then we have to not just focus on answers, but how they're thinking about those answers, how they're getting to those answers. And what I love about this quote is what he says at the very end, that he recognizes that teaching in this way, teaching about the thought process or sense making and problem solving, is very different from one that teaches about getting answers. So with that, we have to reflect back on how are we creating this mathematical mindset for our students. And we have to make sure that we're not bringing in things that maybe are how we grew up learning math, are getting influenced by the way we're teaching our math. So why? Why do we need to do this? Well, this is the top 10 skills to succeed in 2015. I just want you to take a look at this. This was in 2015. The #1 skill was complex problem solving. And then look at #4. We must have critical thinking. And #10 is creativity. But what I think is interesting is the World Economic Forum has already come out with the top 10 skills to succeed in 2020. And really thinking right now that #1 is still that complex problem solving, but look where critical thinking and creativity have landed. In 5 short years, we have already changed drastically in what is needed to succeed. It's not just the same skills over and over and over. The one I want to point out to you on the top 10 skills on 2020 is number 10. So remember where creativity was, and now it's number 3? This idea of cognitive flexibility, that idea of thinking flexibly to transition from one train of thought to another. We are having to help our kids be able to do these things so that they can be successful, because we are preparing those students for the future. And what we're trying to do is help them see themselves as mathematicians, and really us being able to nurture that mathematical mindset. I love what Toffler says here. He talks about that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. So think about a mathematical mindset. If we think that it is about growth, as mathematics is a subject of growth, and that our job is to learn and to learn new ideas, that's what we're saying here. We have to get kids to see that they can learn things. They might need to unlearn some things and relearn. So that's what we're trying to create here. So why math fluency? What is the importance of this, and how does it connect to that mathematical mindset? Well, one thing before we get to math fluency, we have to think about one of the foundations of math fluency, which is the idea of number sense. And you will see this all over when you look into research. But it says that number sense is the foundation for all higher level mathematics. If we are trying to get kids to be successful in math beyond our elementary years, beyond our middle school years, then we have to give them the foundation. And that is the idea of number sense. Now, what do I mean by number sense? So I want you to take a moment, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time to reflect, and you can put this in the question box if you would like. But when someone says that student has number sense, or someone asks you, what does it look like for a kid to have number sense? What do you think of? So if you will take a moment, you can put your answers in the question box, but what does that mean for you? So take a moment to do that. So I wonder, are y'all thinking things like this? That we're talking about, that when we look at a student, when we think about a student with number sense, they're extremely flexible in their thinking, which we just found out is a huge skill for 2020. It's the number 10. It's that being flexibly the cognitive flexibility. When students have number sense, they are accurate. They are accurate, and accuracy is still a very important part of mathematics, even though we don't necessarily want to be the sole focus of it, but it is still important. When we see a student with number sense, we often say that they are very efficient in how they get to their answers. They're not doing things, they're not writing down 1,000 things before they get to that answer. They have a very efficient way of getting there. When we think of somebody with number sense, they are extremely creative. I want you to think back on some of your students that you've seen, and they've come up with an idea on how to solve a problem that you may never have even thought of. Mathematics is a creative subject for sure. It's not what I used to think mathematics was, but it is. And number sense has a lot to do with the ideas of creativity. Number sense has something to do with algorithms. And what I mean by that is not that they only use the algorithm, but Kids know when to use the algorithm and when not to use the algorithm. So when numbers are ugly and you don't see any relationships, then that's when you might use an algorithm. Mental math. So when we think about number sense and mental math, what we know is that kids are able to use their head to reason about the numbers. That's what we mean by mental math. They're able to do math in their head and reason about it. And then this idea of speed. And please make sure you understand, I am not talking about time test. I'm not talking about how quick they are. What I am talking about is that the idea that they are able to be able to pick out a strategy for those numbers. They're able to see the relationships quickly. So they can see the relationship and they know what strategy they're going to use. So these are all different ways what it looks like with number sense. So how does this connect to math fluency? Well, looking at this definition that we have, we say that math fluency is really the ability to apply strategies accurately, efficiently, and flexibly, and to recognize when one strategy is more appropriate to apply than the other. That's when we know that they have achieved fluency, when they're able to apply those strategies accurately, efficiently, and flexibly, and realize that one strategy is not enough because numbers are different and they have different types of relationships that you can see with them. So before you can get to math fluency, an underlying piece of fluency is that they have a strong understanding of the concept. So we have to have conceptual understanding before they ever get to math fluency. So how does math fluency play an intervention? Well, one of the things I want to recognize is that if we know that number sense is the foundation of all higher mathematics, we have to make sure that we are helping our students to foster them to become flexible, efficient, accurate, and creative. Because if our students are missing that math fluency, then we have to intervene to help them with this. Now, when we talk about intervention, Marilyn Burns had 9 essential strategies that she talks about when we look at an intervention. The first one is that we have to determine what math content we're going to do. We recognize that we have to come up with some way to know what our kids know and what they don't know. We also have to pace our lessons carefully in intervention, which means we can't be too rushed to move on. Kids need time they need time to struggle. Struggle is and not just struggle and get frustrated, but productive struggle. Struggle is very important. It's what helps our minds grow. It's what helps us learn. If you think back on times where you've learned something, most likely it's because you have gone through some type of struggle. We need our kids to do that. So our lessons might need more repetition and stuff. We need to build in a routine support. We have to make sure that our lessons have support built in before we let them go and be independent. We want to foster student interaction.
Brittany,
we want
Brittany,
kids.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I interrupt for just a second? If for some reason you are, just check your line. I have everybody individually muted, but if you could just go the next step and mute your line on your end as well, that would be super, super helpful. There's some audio coming in and I can't quite figure out where it's coming from. So just, if you can do that, that would be great. Sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
No problem, Kristen. So we want to make sure that we are fostering student interaction with our students. So we have to make sure that our intervention is not just one child sitting there and we're just talking at them, but they have opportunity to interact with either us or other students. We have to make connections explicit. This is so important. If mathematics is a subject of growth, then one thing we have to help our students see is how math is connected to each other, that I can take kids where they are and help them continue to grow. We want to make sure our intervention encourages kids to do mental calculations. When we do mental calculations, it helps us focus more on the reasoning. If we just give them pencil and paper all the time, then a lot of times they just do what they always do. They do the same thing. But if we make them have to think and reason about it in their heads, that gives them a little bit more focus there. We have to provide practice. If we do not provide practice, guys, then we're not going to get very much further. So they're going to show you during your lesson, but if we never practice it, it's not going to become internalized within themselves. We want to make sure we're building in the vocabulary instruction, and I'm not saying a separate lesson for that. I'm saying that within the lessons that we are doing, we want to make sure we're using that vocabulary and having the students use that vocabulary. And last, we have to help students use written calculations to track thinking. So we need to help them see how can they track their own thinking. What tools can they use? So with this, Math Fluency is supported right from our IES practice guide for assisting students struggling with mathematics, response to intervention. If you look at recommendation 6, what you will say is interventions at all grade levels should devote about 10 minutes in each session building fluent retrieval of basic arithmetic facts. So this is supporting the idea that math fluency, whether there's other gaps, math fluency should be a 10-minute piece in our intervention programs. But I want to make sure we understand what that means. Are we talking about memorization when we talk about fluent basic retrieval? So are we talking about that we just want kids that thinking through a computation is unnecessary? Or are we talking about instruction that's based on automaticity? That thinking through a computation relies on thinking and relationships, and answers are produced in only a few seconds. Counting each time is not acceptable. So make sure you hear me clear on automaticity. I still want kids to be automatic with their facts. I still want them to produce an answer quickly. I don't want them to get bogged down in those pieces. But what I want you to remember is that if our goal is to help students see themselves as mathematicians with a mathematical mindset, we know that successful math users search for patterns and relationships and think about connections. So which definition works for that if that's our goal? Automaticity. These are two definitions that are by Kathy Fosno. So these are by Kathy Fosno, but I really love what Kathy Fosno says about this, where she says memorization of basic facts sacrifices the needed foundation of algebra by not exploring relationships. Take a moment to read that. If our kids only memorize, we are sacrificing the needed foundation of algebra by not exploring relationships. So I need you to think about your students. I need you to figure out what students do you feel have memorized. I can tell you some of my highest performing students memorized. And if I just allow them to know it, just to say, I know it 8 plus 7 is 15 because I know it, then I am not helping them. I'm not supporting the foundation that they're going to need when they get to algebra. because I'm not helping them explore those relationships. So when we think about intervention, the relationships, exploring the relationships, working towards automaticity is where we want to be. Yes, I want them to know it, but I want to make sure that we get to know it in a way that's supporting the idea, the foundation that they're going to need. So this is my child. Now, this was 11 years ago. This is my youngest, Macy. And I have this up here because what it did is it reminded me of something that I heard Kathy Fosno talk about one time. So what she was saying is, I want us to think about our instruction. I want us to think about intervention instruction. And what she said is for us, she wanted us to imagine our child on the cusp of learning to walk or learning to crawl. So this is Macy literally about to crawl. And I want you to think about, how did we help her learn to crawl? What do we do with our children? And so she said, did we isolate and demonstrate skills? So did we do something like this? Like we said, okay, balance on your right arm and put your left arm forward. Let's practice this. Balance on your right arm and put your left hand forward. And then say, okay, you've mastered that, check off. Let's go to the next one. Balance on your left hand and right. That's not what we did when we were teaching kids to crawl or to walk. What we did is when we saw this moment, we started celebrating, right? We're so excited when they're about to start to crawl, and we start to celebrate. And what do? We let them go and we let them come towards us, and we don't pick them up. What do? We back up so we can see. We want to challenge them so that they will keep on going. Well, that's what we want for intervention instruction. We take kids where they are. We don't isolate skills and do step by step. We take them, we let them, we figure out where they are, and we challenge them a little bit more, and they keep going. We take them where they are and we challenge them. We take them and challenge them. So I need us to remember that that's what teaching through sense making is all about. We know that all human beings are born with a desire to make sense of the world around them. So our kids can make sense of mathematics, and this ties back into if they have a mathematical mindset, right? So our intervention, whether math fluency or a concept, has to take kids where they are, and they have to nudge them. Now, this brings us to something that if you've ever been in my sessions, you will always see me put on there, and this is about the development of mathematical reasoning by research by Pamela Harris. So we have to know where our kids are, right? We have to understand how kids learn how to reason about mathematics. And really what she says, and if you want to learn more, please go to her blog. She has, and she's doing lots of webinars as well that you can join in on, where she talks about this. But we know that kids all start in counting strategies. Our kindergarten teachers right now are working extremely hard on this. And we know that starting in first and second grade, they are working extremely hard on what we call additive thinking about those numbers in those chunks. So not thinking about numbers as 1, 1, 1, as if we were in counting. So thinking about 8 and 7 as 8 and 2 is 10, and 5 more is 15, or 7 and 7 is 14, and 1 more is 15. We know that the teachers in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade are working a lot on multiplicative reasoning. So they're trying to get their kids now to not think about numbers, again, in those 1, 1, 1s, but think about those numbers in groups. Our groups within groups. For something like 6 times 7, we want them to think 6 times 6 is 36 plus another group of 6. Because when they get to middle school, They have to be able to reason proportionally. That's what those middle school teachers right now are working extremely hard on. But here's the reality. We have a lot of kids that are stuck back in counting. So I told you I would tell you about my 7th grade teaching experience. One of the reasons I wanted to go is because teachers kept telling us that they didn't know their facts. And as an elementary teacher, who I know every single one of you are working extremely hard, especially right now, to make sure, even if they are learning from home, you are still making sure that those kids are learning their facts. I just want to make sure that we're helping them in the right direction. Because what happened is that those 7th graders for 7 times 6 learned that it was because 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7 plus 7, or that's 6 times, and they only knew 7 plus 7 is 14, and after that, they were rapid fire counters. So I had a lot of 7th graders who knew 42, but knew it because they were stuck all the way back in counting. And so that's really difficult for a middle school teacher to get a kid to think proportionally if they are all the way back in counting. So we want to make sure that we're helping kids progress in all of these different areas. And I love what Christina Toldeveld says about numeracy and fluency. And what she says is that numeracy can't be taught, it has to be caught. So I want you to think about that. Just like Kathy Fosno says, you know, we can't teach those isolated skills. We can't show them step by step by step what to do. We have to figure out a way to help kids catch it. So how do we get kids to catch it? Well, today we're going to see two routines that are very targeted to help with math fluency. These 2 routines are extremely important to help kids catch the numeracy, to help them be able to construct that number sense pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an instructional routine of a quick image. Okay, and it's going to be a series of quick images, and actually it's going to end up being a number string, but it's going to be quick images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash something on your screen, and I want you to figure out how many, and then I want you to figure out, and then I'm going to ask you, how do you see it? Okay, so here we go. Ready? Oh, I forgot about this part. All these routines are going to do these pieces, but here we go. Ready? So how many did you see? Did you say 10? And I wonder if you said 10 because you saw this one right here, and you're like, well, if I just move that one to right here, then that fills up that 10 frame, so that's 10. Now, everyone, I want you to please be gracious with me on this. I am actually trying to draw with my mouse. So this is not going to be extremely pretty, but it will at least know, you'll know what I would actually do in a classroom in this situation. So I would show them this card just like that. I would ask them how many. And if they said that they said 10, I would write 10 right here. And I would say, okay, so if we know it's 10, we had 9 and 1, but how do you know it's 10? Because you filled the 10 frame, so you know it's 10 and 0. So that is a way to look at that. That's kind of nice if I can visually move that bead over there. Okay, so let's do another one. Here we go. Ready? How many? Did you say 15? So I wonder if you said 15. So you said 15. Now my next question that I want to ask you is, how did you say 15? Because I flashed that pretty quickly. How many of you took this dot right here and visualized it over here? So you visualize it right here. So you had 9 and we had 6, but you know it's 15 because you see the 10, this full frame, and then we have our 5 right here. That's a really nice way of knowing 9 plus 6. If I can make that 10, and then I have what's left over, and I can use those 10 frames to help me. Okay. Okay, so here we go. Let's do another one. How many? Did you say 10? How do you know it's 10? So if this is 10, how do you know it's 10? Well, do you know it's 10 because you're like, well, I see these 2 blank, and guess what I can do with these 2? I can just move them over here. Yeah, and how is that helpful? Because that was 8 and 2 is what I had. So how is that helpful? Well, because now I can look at it as 10 and 0. Those partners of 10 can be very helpful. So nice job. So let's keep going. Okay, here we go. And how many? So how many did you see? Did you say 14? So did you say 14? I wonder how you knew it was 14. How many of you were like, well, I still have those 2, and I already know that I could fill this frame up. So I could fill this frame up, and I would just have these 4 left over here. So this was 8 and 6, and you know that because you've got your 10, it's 14 because 10 and 4. That's a really nice way of looking at 8 plus 6. If I can make that 10, and then I just have the leftovers over here. Nice job. So let's try another one. So let's try another one. Ready? How many? How many of you are like, well, that is 12, because I started looking over here and going, how can I fill that? So you can take these 3 and you can move them over here, right? So I can take those 3 and I can move them over here, and then I'm just left with these 2 right here. So what did we just do? So we know 12 is the same as 7 and 5, because I see 7 over here and I see 5 over here. But more importantly, I can see 7 as 5 as 10 and 2. That's a really nice way of thinking about 7 and 5. If I can make that 10 and then look at what I have left over, which is a really nice thing that I can do. So what you just experienced was what we call a number string. And this is an example of a number string that's actually in our intervention kits. So I want us to really look at this card. So we started with 9 plus 1 and went to 9 plus 6, and then 8 plus 2 and 8 plus 6. It was really important that I go in that order because I want you to think about what we're trying to do. Each time, if we think about that intervention and we go back to that picture that Kathy Fosno about how we help kids learn, we take kids where they are. We take kids, they know 9 plus 1, or we get them to see 9 plus 1, and we nudge them a little bit more when we go to 9 plus 6. How many of them are going to use what they know of 9 plus 1 to help them with 9 plus 6? And then we move to 8 plus 2, very purposely, because then I wanted to see on 8 plus 6, how many of you, how are we going to nudge them to start to see that, oh, 8 plus 6, I can make 10 first, and then I have what my leftovers. And then I give them that 7 plus 5, and you're like, well, you didn't give them 7 plus 3. You're right, I didn't, because now I just want to see, what are they going to do? Are they going to see a relationship Are they going to try to make 10 on this one, or are they not? It will give me a lot of information about where my kids are and where I have nudged them to go. You will also see that in the middle, you're going to see my questions I ask. So how many, or how many dots, and how do you see them? I also have the goal of what I was trying to get towards. So I wanted people to see that, to move that dot over to the 1, so it would be 10. And then you're going to notice that this was exactly how I modeled it for you. So I was modeling it for you, and it was already done for you. So this is an example of a number string. And this is an example of one of our number string cards that we have here at Hand to Mind. We'll talk more about this at the very end too. So just know that a number string is considered to be a 5 to 10 minute routine. So let's think about that recommendation at the very beginning that we talked about in the IES guide. Could we do a number string with our students as one of the pieces of our intervention program? Could it be something that I start with? Of course, I can do number strings whole class as well, which I do, but today we're focused on intervention. And so this can fit right into that 5 to 10 minutes that we can give. Again, I pulled out, it's very important that you recognize that in a number string, there are helper problems. So you see that 9 plus 1 helped us to get 9 plus 6 because the goal was the strategy of get to 10. So I was trying to get kids to catch the numeracy of get to 10, not tell them step by step how to do get to 10. So you might be saying, okay, well, how does this go across the grade levels? So how does get to 10, why is that a foundation that's needed? Well, I want us to look. When we get into 2-digit and 3-digit addition with whole numbers, we can use that same idea that you were using in get to 10 as the foundation of get to a friendly number. So remember, we take kids from where they are and we build upon it. If they have get to 10 and I'm working on 2-digit, why don't we help them see the connection between the two? But this doesn't stop with whole numbers. You can see we can do the same thing with decimals and with fractions. We want to make the connections explicit. Remember, we want kids to see mathematics as a subject of growth. So this is the way that it continues to grow across the strands. Another routine that we can do is called a math talk. So we have number strings that really help with constructing those strategies, but we have to provide students opportunities to talk about those in a way where I'm giving them opportunities just to look at numbers. So on the right-hand side of your screen, that is an example of a number talk. It is one problem, and what we've already done at Hand to Mind is we've identified 4 strategies that kids could use to do 9 plus 5. Because here's the thing, every kid is going to see a different relationship when they look at 9 plus 5. My main goal is, as long as it is efficient and they're being accurate, that's what we're looking for. So math talks are one problem. They elicit multiple strategies. We want multiple strategies to come out in a math talk. It is a time to promote that student discourse. We're having student discourse and number strings, but this is a time to really focus in on how are they solving that problem, looking for similarities in the problem, looking for differences in how other people are solving it. It is the focus of a math talk is towards choosing a strategy. So remember, number sense, when we think about kids who have number sense, they have that speed about choosing a strategy quickly. Well, if we never give them opportunities to choose strategies, then we're not going to nurture that idea. So a math talk really gives kids the opportunity just to look at numbers and decide what's best for those numbers in their eyes. But what we've talked about today is that you need to recognize that number strings and a math talk work together. You need both. Number strings are related problems designed to teach strategies based on number relationships. They bring out the strategies. We're catching the strategies. We're not telling them step by step what to do. A math talk is an activity that elicits multiple strategies and provides opportunities to reason about relationships and numbers and make connections in mathematics. Think about automaticity. We have to give them opportunities to reason. Math talks do a really nice job of that. But there's more to intervention than just the piece of, well, here's my lesson. We have to know the question of, what do my kids not know? So I always hear, my kids don't have, well, which kids? We have to identify which kids and what don't they have, right? So which kids and what don't they have? So we have to have a tool that will help us identify what are they struggling with? What strategies do they have that are going to help them achieve math fluency, and what strategies do they not? So there we have progress monitoring sheets that help us see, what are my kids doing? I can give them any problem. This progress monitoring sheet can work for any problem, but I can look and I can see, are my kids just not able to solve it? Are they counting everything? Are they counting on, or are they counting back? And then what are we nudging towards? If we're nudging towards those additive strategies, what are those additive strategies? And so we put that, and do we feel like they've achieved automaticity? And we have that comment. So this is a way to track our students' progress. Now, I'm coming back to these 9 essential strategies, because right now what I want you to think about is, I want you to reflect on what you've seen. What you've seen in a number string and what you've seen in a math talk and the progress monitoring sheet. Did we determine what math caught? Do we have something that helps us determine what math content? Well, the progress monitoring sheet helps us determine that. Does a number string and a math talk help us pace the lessons carefully? Does it allow kids to have that productive struggle? Does it give them enough opportunities to construct those strategies? Did it build in a routine of support? Remember, I was the one who was modeling thinking. In a number string, I'm modeling student thinking. That's a support. The kids aren't doing that. I'm modeling that. They're just telling me what they're saying. Does it foster student interaction? Does it help kids interact with me or with the students around them? Did it make connections explicit? So did I make the connection that if I have 9 plus 1, I can use that for 9 plus 6? Does this encourage mental calculations? Does it encourage kids to reason about numbers? Does it provide the practice that they need? Does it build in vocabulary instruction? So when we're doing those number strings and those math talks, are we having kids use that academic vocabulary in those pieces? And does it help students use written calculations on track thinking? Yes, because I'm modeling that for them. So then eventually they will be able to model that on their own. So what has Hand2Mind created to help with this? We've created something called Math Fluency Intervention, which has 60 number strings. So you will see that they come on cards, just like what that arrow is pointing to with the ring, but there are 60 number strings around strategies. There are 30 math talks. So you saw that one page of the 9 plus 5. Well, there's 30 of those. It comes with the student manipulatives. So the manipulatives that you're going to need to be able to do a number string and a math talk, you get all that. So you can see right here, you see the 10 friend cards, the picture cards, and the rec and rec. And it comes with a teacher guide. The teacher guide helps the teachers know what strategies, understand the strategies, but more importantly, it also includes that progress monitoring sheet to monitor your students' progress. Now, what do we have Math Fluency Intervention in? Well, one of the things that we have is we have a basic addition and subtraction kit. So that kit includes, same thing, the 60 number strings, the 30 math talks, the manipulatives, and the teacher guide and the progress monitoring sheet, all to do with basic addition and subtraction. So if that's what your students are struggling with, this would be the kit you might want to have. We have a kit that's multi-digit addition and subtraction. So if we feel like the kids have constructed those basic fact strategies, how do we make the connection from there to the multi-digit ones? So we're going to use those same types of strategies to help us with multi-digit addition and subtraction. You're going to notice there are some new tools up here. So we have our 120 bead reckon rack that scaffolds very nicely. It folds out, it's magnetic, and it's a very good scaffold to an open number line. And we use an open number line a lot in this one. We have our basic multiplication and division kit. So you're going to notice, again, we use our picture and dot cards, we use grid arrays, and these are flexible so they fold to any array that you want through a 10 by 10. We have a ratio table as well. We have our multi-digit multiplication and division. So again, we're going to build off of what we've learned here, and we have our multi-digit one. And then we have fraction decimal operations. So we know that, fifth grade, they're really getting into those operations, some of them in fourth grade, but fifth grade, they're getting into that. And in middle school, they might need some help on that. And so again, we're still using those manipulatives. So you can see we use Cuisenaire rods, two color counters, fraction circles, all those things, the ratio table, the number lines, all of those pieces. All of this connects and helps provide kids the foundation that they need. So I go back to this quote. A mathematical mindset is knowing that math is a subject of growth and the student's role is to learn and think about new ideas. My hope for you today is that you have some information that will help your students have a mathematical mindset and recognize that we are trying to help kids see that math is a subject of growth and that their role is really to learn and help make those connections so that they can be successful. So I'm going to stop there. I hope that you got a lot of information, and I am going to open it up for questions.
Brittany, I have several, so I'm just going to, I flagged some of the most important ones. Guys, we will print this, and any unanswered questions, I'll shoot a response back to you via email. But I do want to go through some of them now. So Brittany, I'm just gonna read them off to you and let you answer each one, if that's okay.
That's perfect.
Okay. First, for your intervention recommendation, when you were talking about that block, how long would the intervention block be?
So I recognize that every intervention block is a little bit different. So that one's a kind of a hard question because that's more of a local decision. I mean, ideally, I would want an intervention for at least 20 minutes if I could. Best would be 30 minutes of that time. But again, that's a local decision. So I know that everybody has to do what they can.
Perfect. The next one is, my staff thinks the pacing and lack of rushing is helpful. How do you balance that with district level expectations that may induce a need to rush?
So that is exactly why I put that in there. So one of the things that I think is helpful here is that the idea here is that you would actually spiral this all in even after if you've taught, so if you take 2 weeks, let's just say you take 2 weeks to teach strategies in your classroom, you have to have a way to continually go back to those strategies. So that's where number strings and math talks come in really nicely as just a set routine that you can constantly be revisiting. Not all kids are going to master it in the 2 weeks that you gave it. And more importantly, they're not going to use it consistently if we never go back and discuss it. So just establishing a routine where you're bringing that back in on a periodically throughout, that's what I would suggest to be able to do. So not taking extra time like a week to keep working on it, but I know that I'm going to continue in like a 10-minute routine every day.
Perfect. Can you expand, can you just clarify automaticity and flexibility? You know, those seem a little bit confusing, I think. So can you explain those a little bit further?
Am I clarifying automaticity and memorization or automaticity and flexibility?
When you say flexibility and automaticity, start with flexibility. When you say flexibility, what do you mean? What would be an example of a student having flexibility?
So when I say somebody has flexibility, what I mean by that is that they have different strategies. When they look at numbers, they don't have one thing that they always see. So for example, when I do 8 plus 7, I see it as 8 and 2 is 10 and 5 more is 15. But somebody else sees it as 7 plus 7 is 14 and 1 more is 15. But here's the thing, I will use doubles for using doubles for another set of numbers. It's just that 8 plus 7 speaks to me 8 and 2 is 10. But for 7 and 6, I really see 6 and 6 is 12 and 1 more is 13. So I have the flexibility to be able to pull out strategies based on the numbers that are put in front of me. That's flexibility. When I think of automaticity, they are able to produce answers quickly. However, they know that how they got that answer. So if I asked a kid 8 plus 7 and they said 15, my first question to them would be, how did you do that? And so they're not going to just tell me that they know it. They actually had a strategy that they did that. So they practiced that strategy over and over and over for those numbers, and it's become automatic, which looks just like memorization, just so you know. Okay? I hope that made sense, the difference.
Can you give them, before we go into the giveaway, just because I want to be cognizant of your time, you guys asked such good questions. It's very difficult to choose the right ones and then to do so for 700 people. So I'm trying to keep up. What could they do virtually, given the situation currently with daily math fluency or the intervention? How could they implement this in an e-learning environment?
That's a great question, and I'm glad somebody came up with that. So I've seen teachers do it a couple of different ways, and some ways that I've thought about it. So it depends on your e-learning situation. If you're sending out a video with your students, then a way to do that, so you're not going to be there to interact with them, you're just there to send out the video, then something I would do would be like a video of a quick image, just like what we just did, where you put some pictures on there and you ask the question in the video and you give them time to pause, and then you go back and you say, I wonder, is this what you were thinking about? Because you don't know what they're thinking. So if that's the way that you have it set up, then you could just do kind of an I wonder if that. So it's still helping. It's not the best setup, but hey, we have to do what we can do right now. If you can do a live session with your students where they interact, that would probably be the best. So if you had a whiteboard set up in your room, or you can use the whiteboard if you use Zoom or webinar and use the whiteboard piece, and you could have that interaction with them. That, of course, is the best way. And then another way is then would be to provide, if you don't have technology pieces and you're only doing worksheets and things like that, it would be to provide them with games that would be promoting them to think in strategy mode. Or using, I can tell you that Hand to Mind has Teach at Home, where we have some activities that can be downloaded that actually teach a lot of these strategies. So you could go visit that too, and those are completely free. So if you have not seen our Teach at Home stuff right now, it's completely free with videos that I've already done some number strings in actually for them. And there are worksheets that actually go with that as well. So that might be an option as well. Kristen?
And I just put that in the chat. So it's handtomindathome.com, and yours truly, Brittany, is in several of the videos. So they are daily lessons, video lessons for math and ELA. There are STEM lessons. There are correlating worksheets, mini manipulative kits, print off manipulative. All of it is free. So I've also put in the chat box the Getting Started video for Daily Math Fluency. It's 13 minutes, I think. If you just purchased or you want more information, it's a great video to walk through. And if you go to the other link I sent, there are several, that's our program page. And you can put in your info to download the Getting Started guide for the general routine. That could be helpful to you as well. Brittany, can you flip to the next? Yes. So I'm going to take a stab at, I hope it's Eileen Russell and Lori Malone. You two are going to be able to pick a topic of your choice for the intervention kit, because you are the winners of the giveaway today. So yay. I will shoot you an email and ask for the topic and your information to send the kits to, and we will get those out to you. Brittany, this was, you know, as usual, amazing. Thank you so much for taking everybody through this. Again, we will absolutely follow up with any questions that were unanswered. We have a new blog coming out, and I think we're going to put some of the questions in there and answer them. So be on the lookout for that. And, you know, just thank you guys for taking the time to come today. We so appreciate the attendance and the engagement. So thank you. We hope you enjoyed it. And everybody have a good day.
Yes, thank y'all very much. And there's my email for you if you have any questions. Y'all have a great rest of the day. And thank you for everything that you are doing.
Thanks, Brittany.